Pledge of Allegiance. Will the Secretary please call roll?
Commissioner Benninger? Commissioner Benninger?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Here.
Commissioner Escamilla?
Present.
Commissioner Leo?
Here.
Commissioner Ramos?
Present.
Commissioner Wu?
Here.
Vice Chair Oliva?
Here.
Chair Pham?
Here.
Chair quorum has been reached at 5:34.
Thank you. Before we begin, I would like to remind my fellow commissioners to turn your microphone on when speaking and off when not speaking. And when speaking, please place the microphone about 4 inches away from you. Members of the public may attend Planning Commission meetings in person or virtually via Zoom. I now invite the Commission Secretary to describe the way the public can access and participate in the meetings.
This meeting is being live streamed via our portal at www.sana-ana.primegov.com/public/portal and to YouTube at www.youtube.com/City of Santa Ana videos. If you would like to provide public comment, you may do so in the following ways. Join the meeting via Zoom, enter meeting ID number 874-3254-5777. When the item that you would like to comment on is being discussed, select the hand icon to let us know you would like to speak. You will be called upon by the name you entered. You can also join the meeting by calling 669-900-6833. Enter meeting ID number 874-325-45777. When the item that you would like to comment on is being discussed, press 9 to let us know you would like to speak. You will be called upon by the last 3 digits of your phone number. After you are called upon, you may press number 6 to unmute yourself. For those who are attending this meeting in person and would like to provide public comment, please fill out a request to speak form and turn it into the secretary. All speakers will have 3 minutes to speak. I will alert you when your time is up.
Moving on to public comments or on non-agenda or non-public hearing items. Madam Secretary, does anyone wish to speak on any non-public hearing items?
Excuse me, Chair Pham and Commissioners, before we proceed any further, it would appear that one of your commissioners is participating remotely tonight. That is certainly possible under some new state regulations. However, it would seem to me that one of the provisions that may be applicable here is called the personal emergency provision, under which a member is not able to participate in person due to a personal or family medical or personal type circumstance. That's entirely acceptable, but in that event, the commissioner must make that request and the council must consider that request and vote upon it before the commissioner is allowed to participate remotely. My understanding is that is the provision under which the commissioner may be invoking, but if that's not correct, then Commissioner Benninger can feel free to correct me.
Commissioner Benninger.
This is Commissioner Benninger. Yes, I had knee surgery on this past Wednesday. So I'm unable to leave the house and be there because of it. And so that's why I'm requesting that participation. At this present time, there's no one else in the room with me. The only thing that will change is my wife in the next half hour will come home from shopping, and she's obviously over the age of 18. And she'll be in the house at that time. But presently, right now, I'm by myself.
The commissioner's request is something that you may consider even at this late stage. Just that a majority must approve it before he can continue remotely.
I'd like to make a motion to approve accepting Commissioner Benninger joining the meeting remote. He did mention it at the last meeting that he was going to have surgery.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Commissioner Wu and a second by Commissioner Escamilla. Madam Secretary, please call roll.
Commissioner Benninger? Oh, wait. Commissioner Escamilla?
Aye.
Commissioner Leo?
Aye.
Commissioner Ramos?
Aye.
Commissioner Wu?
Aye.
Vice Chair Oliva?
Aye.
Chair Pham?
Aye.
Motion approved by unanimous consent.
Great. So then we can move on to, yeah. Thank you, John. Moving on to the public comments on non-agenda items or non-public hearing items. Does anyone wish to speak on any non-public hearing items?
If you're attending this meeting in person and would like to comment on an agenda or non-public hearing items, please fill out a request to speak form and turn it into the secretary. If you are participating via Zoom and would like to comment on non-agenda or non-public hearing items, please select the hand icon and unmute yourself. If you are calling in and would like to comment on non-agenda or non-public hearing items, please dial 9 and then 6 to unmute yourself. We do not have any speakers.
Thank you. Moving on to the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve minutes from July 10th as well as excused absences?
I move we approve the minutes of the last meeting and the excused absences.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Wu and a second by Commissioner Leo. Madam Secretary, please call roll.
Commissioner Benninger? You need to unmute yourself.
Yes.
Commissioner Escamilla?
Yes.
Commissioner Leo?
Aye.
Commissioner Ramos?
Yes.
Commissioner Wu?
Aye.
Vice Chair Oliva?
Aye.
Chair Pham?
Aye.
Motion approved by unanimous consent.
That concludes the consent calendar. I'll now review the process for the public hearing so that everyone knows what to expect. Staff will provide a presentation and answer questions from the commission. The public hearing will then be open. The applicant will then be given the opportunity to speak, limited to 15 minutes. Members of the public will then be given the opportunity to comment, limited to 3 minutes. The applicant will then be given the opportunity to respond to comments made by the public, limited to 5 minutes. The public hearing will then be closed. Discussion will return to the commission with formal action taken to approve, deny, or continue review of the application. Please consider the following suggestion when organizing your comments. Please state your name and address, which is voluntary. State whether you support, oppose, or are neutral to the proposal. Your statement should include all pertinent facts within your knowledge. Please note, decisions on this matter is final unless appealed within 10 days by any interested individual or party. Recommendations on these items will then be forwarded to the City Council at a later date for final determination. This is the time and place for public hearing item number 1, street naming number 2023-01 to rename a segment of North Maybury Street and South Elk Lane to Zoo Lane. Before we begin, do any of the commissioners have anything they wish to disclose with regard to this item? Seeing none, Ethan Fisher will now provide a brief presentation.
Commissioners, before we begin, I'd just like to take a moment to briefly introduce Zoo Manager Ethan Fisher, who will be providing the presentation tonight. Is also recently featured in the notable alumni section of the UC Irvine magazine. He'll be taking it away.
Well, thank you for having me this evening. I don't make an appearance at the Planning Commission very often. I have a brief presentation that will talk about the street naming request, which is a request to rename a section of South Elk Lane and Maybury Street adjacent to the zoo to South Zoo Lane. So that is the request tonight. The location that we're looking at on the map on the screen, the zoo is the open space on the this parcel here. And the subject roadway is highlighted in yellow. Adjacent to the zoo, there is residential multi-family housing. There's also a number of different commercial lots and parcels on Maybury Street, but they're not addressed on that roadway. So this is the area in question tonight. I'll give a little bit of history of the area. The zoo opened in 1952. It started as a donation of 12 acres from Joseph Edward Prentice. He was a landowner. He owned a large parcel called Melwood Acres. And Melwood Acres encompassed the property that is the zoo today, and also the area on the opposite side of Elk Lane, which is apartments. So all of Melwood Acres was his property. He had citrus orchards, and he also had horses and mules. There was a beautiful Victorian house he had there. And as he was getting up there in age, he made an offer to the city to donate some of the land for the zoo. One of the conditions that came with donating that land was an extension of Mayberry Street. It terminated at First Street at that point. So when the zoo opened, Mayberry was extended, dividing the parcel, and thus we had the zoo. In 1957, the I-5 freeway was constructed. So it was actually constructed after the zoo opened. And in the 1960s, the Saddleback Inn and the Elks Lodge were constructed across the street from the zoo. At that time, the Mayberry extension was renamed Elk Lane. So it actually came into reality when the zoo was constructed. In 2019, the Elks moved, and the Saddleback Inn was also removed, the remnants of it. And in 2021, the Elks made a request to rename part of Lion Street Elk Lane, which is adjacent to their new Elks Lodge that they have. And that was approved by the Planning Commission and the Council in 2021. One of the issues that we noticed when we were looking at this opportunity for renaming Elk Lane as Zoo Lane is that Mayberry Street is also separated by the I-5 freeway, where we have Mayberry Park in the city and Mayberry. There's two sections of it, and there's one little remnant section that is south of the 5. If you were exiting the 5 north coming to the zoo, you go around a big horseshoe ramp, off ramp, and you end up on that little tiny section of Mayberry Street. So we're proposing to name that also Zoo Lane to make it continuous. And all of this goes back to commemorating the 70 plus years that the zoo has been in the community as a community asset and a facility that many people have memories visiting. Here's a photo showing the approach to Elk Lane as you are on First Street. The zoo is on the left side, and then the newer residential developments are on the right. And here's a view looking at the section of Mayberry Street I was talking about. On the right-hand side is a parcel that's owned by Caltrans. It's a parking lot that they use for their volunteer program when people need to do court hours. And as part of the Clean California grant that was available the last couple of years, we just installed some zoo-themed artwork on the fence. So as you're coming off the freeway, you see the beautiful banners for the zoo, you see the artwork along the Caltrans fence, and hopefully you would continue on Zoo Lane as you approach the zoo. Analyzing the request, we did not feel that it has any threat to the public health or welfare or safety. We also do not feel that it lessens the history of the Elks in Santa Ana. They have a long history in Santa Ana, but there are 2 Elk Streets now, or 2 Elk Lanes now. And we did reach out to the Elks and received correspondence from them supporting the request for renaming the street after the zoo. We have a lot of years of history working with them, and they were great neighbors to the zoo for many decades. So they are supportive of this request. And then there's also a precedent in the region and amongst the industry for having a street name like Zoo Lane or Zoo Drive or Aquarium Way. There's actually looking a little bit further into the country. I looked at the Sedgwick County Zoo, and they have I believe it's Zoo Drive that's 2.5 miles long, and it has a variety of businesses and residential properties that are addressed on it. So this is not really an uncommon thing in the US. There are some new properties that are adjacent to the zoo. So the one is called Park on First, and then there's also the Elk Lane Apartments. There was some discussion in 2019 when they were first being constructed about renaming the street, but that was ultimately dropped, and then the ownership changed on the apartments, so that really didn't go anywhere. So hopefully they'll be amenable to this request, and I think it is helpful and really brings some attention to the area. And the zoo is really an anchor in this corner of the city. There are no properties that are addressed on North Maybury Street, so that isn't really a concern there. One additional thing that's happening, or actually two things. The corner of the terminus of Elk Lane right now hits Chestnut Avenue. And that you make a left turn there to go into the zoo parking lot. That is receiving a signalized intersection in next year. Public Works is finalizing that right now. And as part of that project, they're allowing us to do a pilot test of doing a decorative crosswalk of zoo themed artwork. So really the zoo lane ties all of this together. You exit the freeway, you see the zoo themed artwork as you're going past the Caltrans lot, you're on zoo lane, you see our banners, you see the zoo sign, the landscaping that augments the zoo, and eventually you end up this intersection that is also zoo themed. You make a left into our parking lot, and it is a really nice experience and provides a gateway into our city facility. And there was not any impact from CEQA, or there's no fiscal impact of this item. And the recommendation that we brought forward is to adopt a resolution approving the street naming request.
All right, thank you, Ethan.
Thank you.
The public hearing is now open. Does the commissioners have any comments or questions for Ethan?
I have a question.
Oh, go down.
Oh, okay.
No, actually,
Commissioner
no questions on my part.
No questions from Commissioner Benninger.
Commissioner Will?
We did some other motion as a planning commission for street naming, and you mentioned that the Inn of Mayberry has no addresses there that are currently use Mayberry. On Elk Lane, further down, are there any residents or apartments that has that address?
Yes, so there, we did reach out to them. We sent correspondence about this item. There's a 52 unit apartment complex at the end of South Elk Lane. And there's two new developments which total 601 units. One building does not have a certificate of occupancy yet, and the other has just started leasing. So there's not very many people that live there yet.
So you contacted the owner, but did you talk to the residents?
We sent the public notices to every address in the building.
When this takes in effect, how long before Google post service, all that is adjusted and the residents get adjusted? Just for my information.
Didn't defer to our planning manager on that one.
Commissioner, it usually takes a few months for all the different service agencies to start implementing the change. Anyone can submit a request to Google to update it once the street signs are updated and all that. And they're usually pretty fast at sort of confirming the changes. And then if the commission were to approve this evening, and then this went on to city council and the council also agreed with the change, then pretty much the next day, the city will send an addressing letter to all the different service agencies like UPS, utility companies, emergency service responders, etc., to notify them of a change with the graphics of all the properties that were affected.
And the apartment driller, how would they be notified? So because they may be getting social benefits, and they have to fill out a lot of those forms and stuff.
They'll be receiving the same notification that'll go out to all the different service providers as well. So any affected property and then any affected service provider will know at the same time.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ramos? Vice Chair?
No questions.
No question on me either, but I do like the crosswalk. I think that's a very great idea. Madam Secretary, have we received any written communication? Or is there any members of the public that would like to comment?
We have received public comment prior to the 4 p.m. deadline, and it has been distributed to the commission and published online. If you are attending this meeting in person and would like to comment on this item, please fill out a request to speak form and turn it into the secretary. If you are participating via Zoom and would like to comment on this item, please select the hand icon and unmute yourself. If you are calling in and would like to comment on this item, please dial 9 and then 6 to unmute yourself. Chair, we do not have any speakers.
Seeing that there's no speakers, public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to approve this matter?
I motion. Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Oliva, and we have a second by Commissioner Ramos. Madam Secretary, please call roll.
Commissioner Benninger,
Aye.
Commissioner Escamilla,
Yes.
Commissioner Leo,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramos,
Aye.
Commissioner Wu,
Aye.
Vice Chair Oliva,
Aye.
Chair Pham.
Aye.
Motion approved by unanimous consent.
Great, thank you. That concludes the business calendar. Moving on to staff comments. I know that we have, are we discussing confirming the items? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of tonight's staff comments is to confirm the topics that were raised via email as requested through Nubia by Min and myself to bring up as topics for future study sessions, either to be held by planning or with our colleagues in other departments like building, public works, and all that. It should also be noted that our intent is to make this a regular occurrence. So if your topics were not received in the confirmation I'm about to provide, we'll be doing this again in the coming months just to make sure that there's additional opportunities as fresh ideas come to mind. So the first batch of comments we have were relating to exploring how to create and implement planning policies that are transformational. The second comment in this family was about how to create incentives and standards to encourage the inclusion of zero carbon building materials, solar energy, more live work, and mixed use development in the city. The third topic along that category was how to get developers and builders to install solar development and pass those savings and electricity to the community to lower their energy burden. The fourth topic was to explore how to come up with ideas to mitigate residential parking problems. And the fifth topic in this first family of topics was exploring writing grants to access state and federal funding to address the needs of marginalized and economically distressed communities, and to be included in, have those communities have access to be included in climate action strategies. So those comments will go into a category of work study sessions focused on that theme. That'll be hosted by planning, and we'll also invite our colleagues in our building department and our public works agency to join us in providing the information to help further the basic services that the Planning Commission can provide when adjudicating these applications. Second group of questions and comments that arose was learning more about how developers may go about meeting with neighborhood associations. Also learning more about how to enhance Wi-Fi and internet upgrades, fiber optics, all that in new developments. And thirdly, learning more about liquor license and how many licenses may be in a census tract, and how to learn more about crime ratings and crime statistics in those affected applications and the neighborhoods in which they're submitted. Following that, the next family of comments was to learn more about short-term rentals and learning more about how existing subdivisions can be converted to gated communities. So again, just to reiterate, some of these are exclusively planning related topics, and then some of these touch on the work that our colleagues in other departments may do as well, and they're certainly be invited to join us those evenings. Finally, wrapping up the last two comments, one of them was to learn more about accessory commercial units and how to allow development opportunities for smaller scale commercial enterprises. And finally, wrapping up with updates on new state laws that specifically affect planning and learning more about how the city approaches those in terms of remaining in compliance or requesting any exemption options that may be available under those state laws. So we hope that this accurately captures the topics and themes that the commissioners had emailed us. And if there's any, I didn't really call out which commissioner specifically requested each, but if you'd like to provide any clarifications, you're more than welcome to catch me, call me, email me. But just know that among these 13 or so topics, our goal is to bundle the relevant ones together. And again, invite colleagues from other departments to help you learn more about these topics as a decision-making body. That's it for staff comments.
Commissioner Escamilla.
Sure, for commissioner comments, thank you all for a nice short meeting today. Hopefully, we still have to get through the comments. I just wanted, I guess, maybe too late to add it, but maybe under the, oh my gosh, the environmentally friendly sort of theme, was going to bring up the topic of CLT, mass timber, and kind of like prefabricated construction. Because I know at least this might be a question more for the building side. Just making sure that we have staff that, if they haven't already, because I don't think we've had a mass timber project in the city or even in the county at this point, whether or not we have the staff trained up to those new codes from the International Building Code, just to make sure that we're ready to accept those types of projects. So that's more planning related. And then the second one, oh my gosh, if I can find this, there is going to be a downtown neighborhood, downtown town hall and community meeting at 9 o'clock over at Alta Baja this Thursday. So for anyone with questions about just what's going on in the downtown, just for everyone here and everyone at home, that should be an interesting meeting.
Commissioner Leo.
No comments.
Commissioner Wu.
Regarding the CPUC for alcohol license, issue was raised about a social problem in our community, and it has so many layers. It's been hot too. People could be passing out and sleeping because of things not alcohol related. But I'm also curious if there's a study between where the liquor license for the little mini marks and a park, if there's any correlation to the number of things. And I think one of the council people started talking about not demonizing this and not penalizing and criminalizing the issue, but that's a social issue. And there might be alternative ways to address it. So from a planning perspective, because we're not dealing with the social aspect of that, is there anything we're doing in terms of approving the number of liquor license and thing? Are we contributing to the social problem? Because I think when I was a member of the drug and alcohol board of the county, there was a guy that came up at every meeting that brought up about alcoholism in the Latino prom, and then we were not directing our resources to helping that. While that's a county issue, I understand that. I'm looking at how our planning process and approval process may or may not contribute that, and is that even appropriate? I don't know, but I'm just trying to connect all the dots to an issue that's a little more complex and certainly a little more than just arresting people, although I do understand the neighborhood concerns and I live in those communities as well. But I also, being a former social worker, I kind of look at not approaching the problem through police powers alone, but to look at other solutions.
Commissioner Ramos.
Yeah, thank you for that recap. So I know I had mentioned the upcoming state policies and like cities' plans to comply or request exemption. I think with that, just also timelines whenever possible. So I know sometimes exemptions are due at different points in the year, or laws come into effect at different points in the year. So it would also be great to just be aware of that. I know for some of us are council members that appointed us like to approach us as thought partners. So just so that we can also proactively have those discussions with them, that would be great. Thank you.
Vice Chair.
No questions, and thank you for the recap.
Commissioner Benninger, do you have any comments?
Yes, I do. First of all, I want to thank the staff for spending an hour with me after our last meeting that Thursday. Spent an hour and went over the EIR for the related Bristol, and I got to ask a lot of questions. And I really encourage any one of my fellow commissioners to spend the time. I now I understand the numbers they're talking about, and Class D intersections, and it's going to help me that when that issue comes before us to better understand it. So I want to thank them for that time that we are together. And I also want to thank them for taking our different thoughts together. And I did recognize a few of those that I've turned in. So thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Manager. No comments from me. Thank you, Ali, for summarizing that. I think my understanding is we'll package these comments onto kind of schedules where we're light on the agenda. Then we'll just package a few of those items on and just go throughout the year.
That's right. We'll keep you busy.
Sounds good. Seeing there's no other comments, we'll adjourn for today. The next regular meeting will be held on Monday, August 14th, 2023, 5:30 p.m. Council Chambers. Thank you.